Well, the Miss America pageant was the highest rated show on television. This is before we had a Super Bowl. I never, ever had a dream of being Miss America. That was never even a remote thought of mine. This was in May. I'm Miss Colorado in July and Miss America in September. It happened so quickly. We left the pageant on Sunday and sped to New York City, and the head of the Miss America pageant, we stayed at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and she said, change your clothes very quickly and come down. And I said, okay. So I did. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I did. And she said, now you're going to address the National Mayor's Convention. It's being held right here, and you're being introduced now. And I said, well, what am I going to say? And she said, anything you want to, dear. And I said, I don't think I can do this. And she said, of course you can. You're Miss America. And with that, I went in and addressed the National Mayor's Convention. And that was the beginning of a year of those kinds of experiences where I learned, yes, I can do that. It was an amazing experience. It was a wonderful experience. My phone rang, and a man said, would you be the keynote speaker for our convention, our national convention? So I worked very, very hard and long on a motivational speech, on having goals and plans and dreams. Someone from there asked me to do another one, and I would get letters and comments, and I began to find meaning in what I was doing. And I thought, this is what I want to do. General Motors had 12 men, all in their 50s and 60s, speakers. So if you were the National Rotary Club and you didn't have a big budget, you would go to General Motors and say, would you give me one of your speakers? Just public relations. So they had 12 of the top speakers in America. General Motors would then send. I wanted to be a General Motors speaker. And they said, we'll try you. We've never had a woman, we'll try you. And so I gave a couple speeches and I became a General Motors speaker. It was amazing. It was wonderful. Women didn't travel. Women didn't work in my generation. My sisters got married and had children. That's what we were supposed to do. And every single thing I could imagine, I was free to pursue. From my generation, that wasn't done. I was the only woman speaker. I was named the Outstanding Woman Speaker in America. I was the only woman speaker. It wasn't hard to win that. I wrote a book, Miss America by Day, 11 years after a newspaper reporter in Denver learned that my father had come into my room from the time I was 5 until I was 18. It was a secret so traumatic that I had blocked it from myself. That's very difficult for people to understand, that you can repress 13 years of the nights of your life. But how could I remember? How could I get up and go to school every day and get A's and be in the choir and be on the ski team if I knew what I was going home to at night and there was no one to help me and there was no way to get out of there? I had to block it. If he came into my room one night a week for 13 years, that's over 600 times. It was a trauma I almost did not survive. I closed the blinds and I said to Larry, it's over. All the respect that I've built, all the success that I've built, it's over now. It's over. No one will ever look at me the same again. I will be shunned because that's what we believe. The phone rang and a woman said, you need to have a press conference. And I said to Larry and Jennifer, I have to get out of here. I have to go. So we put on our sweats and we went to the high school track. We were jogging around the track and the woman with her 2 dogs came. We always said hello. She stopped me. And she said, Marilyn, we're so proud of what you're doing. And I'm so grateful. Your sister came forward this morning. I had been upset about that. And I said, really, why? And she said, because yesterday, on our most popular radio talk show, people were calling in and saying, why should we believe her? Now that your sister has come forward, they will have to believe you. I was stunned. I looked at her and I said, if people are not going to believe 53-year-old me, then who is going to believe a child. And that was my life-changing moment. I came home, I called the newspapers, and I called the television stations, and I said, let's get to work. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. The shame was so intense, I believed Larry would never, ever want to look at me again, much less want to marry me. I believed no boy's family would want to marry my daughter Jennifer. I believed no college would accept her if they knew about me. That's the kind of shame that I carried. That's the kind of shame all of us carry. It wasn't until it went public, and it had been 2 weeks, and I was talking to reporters every day. It was on every newscast, it was in the paper, it was just everywhere. And the same reporter, he said, it's been 2 weeks. Has anything changed for you? And I was trying to think of something, and I said, oh, yes, today is the first day I'm talking to you without shame. And that was a big day for me. Denver newspapers covered my story extensively. People magazine called and wanted to do an interview. And she kept coming back for more. And finally she said, this is going to be a cover story. And the title was something like Miss America Overcomes Shame. And that was when I understood all of it. I looked at it and I thought, Miss America, that's why I'm on the cover. It doesn't say incest, it doesn't say rape, it says shame, because that's what it's about, is shame. And that was the day I knew that's why I'd become Miss America. That's why I'd become a motivational speaker, because this was the job. I had actually looked up one day and I said, you know, I want to help, but I can't let anybody know that I am, so how can I help behind the scenes? Anyway, I was getting jobs that were given, I believe were given to me by a higher power. And when I saw People magazine, I just went, okay, this is the big job, isn't it? This is the big one, okay? All right. It's one of the reasons why being a part of the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame has such special meaning for me. Because when I believed why my life was over at 53, in many ways I've been honored for the work that I've done in the area of sexual abuse. And that's just amazing to me and to many thousands of other people, that you would be honored for work that you would do in a field where everybody still is living in too much shame. So I hold my head high. I'm proud of who I am. I am so honored to be a part of the Women's Hall of Fame. I just feel that my life, I've had such an interesting life, and my life has been so blessed. I've been to the lowest of the low, and I've been to the highest of the high, and I'm going to be 75, and I am still going strong.